It's only the second week since the State Capture Commission of Inquiry resumed, yet there has already been a delay in testimony by former ESCOM CFO Anoj Singh. Now, the move follows an affidavit from Singh that still needs to be submitted. According to Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, it would have been unjust to expect Singh to testify without that affidavit. Now, the Commission has had a number of postponements and has even been asked for extensions to complete its inquiry, or it has itself asked for extensions to complete its work. The Zondo Commission has both critics and supporters, and to unpack this now, I'm joined by Advocate Modidima Mannya. He's a political analyst talking to us from Pretoria. Good morning to you, sir. And Sanusha Naidu is a political analyst sitting in Cape Town. And a very good morning to you, ma'am. Let me start with you, Advocate Mannya. In fact, before I even ask any of you a question, there is a bit of an exchange that I would like to play for you. And it is of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry Chair, that's the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, talking to the evidence leader yesterday, which is what led to the postponement that we saw. I'm told that we don't have that bite for the moment, so hopefully I will line it up at some stage. But perhaps let's go through, Mr. Mannya, the bungling that has been seen at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry yesterday, and it led to Anoj Singh essentially being given time to go and compile this affidavit, which is expected to return or present to that commission on Monday, but reluctantly so, according to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry Chair Raymond Zondo. To you, can the Commission of Inquiry afford to be making such mistakes, if it is a mistake or an own goal, as some would call it?
Yes, maybe let's put the whole thing in proper context and objectively.
Sure.
Judge Zondo ruled effectively against the request by Anoj Singh's lawyer for a postponement. And he made it very clear that he was not satisfied with the reasons given for the failure to comply with the directives of September. So that is the one part of it. The other side of it is that he ruled that he could not proceed, in all fairness, with a defective summons, because in real terms, it means that Mr. Singh's evidence was being procured in circumstances which are otherwise unlawful, and therefore stand to be set aside. So if we were to talk about any bungling, it would have been bungling on both sides. I mean, in law, it is the responsibility of the judge, regardless of what the parties say, to make sure that the processes are lawful and that the law is applied correctly. So the decision is not based on the submissions made by any of the parties. And he has found that both of the parties have not been helpful to the commission.
Yeah, but Mr. Mannya, I want to tackle you on that a little bit, to say the commission chairperson was clearly very reluctant to grant this postponement because he was convinced from the get-go that all that this witness is trying to do is perhaps be treated differently, which is some of the wording he used, but more importantly that he knew from 3 years ago that he was going to come before the commission. So how in the world does he submit an affidavit now on the day that he's supposed to testify? And that's when he then takes a decision to take a break and he goes to his chambers to familiarize himself with what the witness, Anoj Singh, was requesting, only to come back and say, actually, the bungling is on our side. This witness was effectively given a defective summons. Surely the mistake this side is on the part of the State Capture Commission.
Definitely. I mean, and in circumstances which I hold a view are inexcusable. I mean, there can't be a reason for that summons to be defective. I mean, clearly, and I think the evidence leader has sought to rely on the fact of the workload, which clearly means the quality assurance processes of the legal team are compromised. The final reason why Judge Zondo gave the postponement was because of a defective summons, no doubt about it. Yeah. But I must indicate that he also took issue with the failure of Anoj Singh to do that. The reality, though, in the final analysis is that the proceedings or Anoj Singh could not continue to give evidence against the background of a defective summons. So the legal team of the commission indeed dropped the ball and tilted the scales in favor of the postponement. If it were not for the defective summons, no doubt the judge would have ruled that Anoj Singh should proceed to give evidence. Yeah. In fact, he went as far as explaining what could have happened instead of referring to an affidavit that is non-existent. I mean, it really doesn't make sense to say I was expecting it. It was not there. That is the bottom line.
There we go. And I'm glad we agree on this point. Sanusha Naidu, before I come to you, I'm told that soundbite is ready now. I really want to play for the viewers that important exchange. Let's have a listen.
You, as the leader, should not have authorized your team to give the Secretariat a summons to sign, which said Mr. Singh was required to appear and give evidence and be questioned on an affidavit that you had not seen. The summons should stand or fall on its own. It should be complete. It should tell the person to whom it is directed what the matters are that he's required to testify about. And this summons, as it stands, doesn't tell him anything meaningful, because everybody knows that whereas it says he would give evidence and be questioned on the affidavit he had submitted, everybody knows he had not submitted any affidavit.
Sanusha Naidu, you've heard the Deputy Chief Justice there. How does this commission defend itself from critics who will say, why in the world must these lawyers who work for the commission get such huge amounts of money, which we were told about last year? Why should they be entitled to such large sums of money when their work is not satisfactory?
Good morning, Kole. I don't really know how they're going to justify this bungle. It's embarrassing to the commission. You could see how irate the Deputy Commissioner Justice Zondo was, and you could actually tell by the tone that he was frustrated because he wants this process to be wrapped up by the end of March. Too much of delays will actually mean that the Commission will not be able to provide a substantive and a really important report that he needs to put forward, because it hinges on the fact that the recommendations he makes, he has to make those recommendations on the basis of all the evidence presented for him and go forward. So I think at this point, in the eyes of the public opinion, it doesn't do much in terms of saying, believe in in this commission, believe in the confidence that we are tackling corruption, that we are dealing with state capture in the manner that we should. I think it becomes, again, one of those unfortunate events that has been left by the wayside, where it reinforces the lack of trust and trust deficit in the institutional architecture of the state. I think there's been many critics out there, both that have been calling for a change in the way in which commissions have been run in this country. I think the problem with the way commissions are structured and the architecture of commissions in South Africa is that spend too much of money, and at the end of the day, the outcomes are always outcomes just fizzle out. We don't see what the end result is, whether there's any action or implementation of these recommendations. And I think this frustrates people. And I couldn't help but bring this back to the insert that was played just before our discussion here, and that is the lack of service delivery. The amount of money that's going into this commission could definitely be used in more productive ways in terms of building up communities that have been suffering because of lack of service delivery. Yeah. And I think it's just...
You make a good point there, Sanusha, about the sums of money that have been spent at this commission. I believe that we're nearing R1 billion. But Advocate Mannya, let's come back to you. It's not the first time that the evidence leader, Puleselega, was essentially found wanting at this commission. This week, on, I think it was Tuesday, there was Matela Koko testifying there, and the commission chairperson had to actually instruct Advocate Pule Selega to give all the information that Matela Koko wanted, because clearly this was now hampering the work of the commission. How important is public trust for this commission as it reaches the end of its life?
Look, it's extremely important. I think people have been very, very critical in the negative of the commission, obviously because a number of them are implicated, and they would want to have the commission lose all credibility that it may have. But I must say that just looking at what transpired yesterday, the conduct of Deputy Chief Justice Zondo should give everybody and anybody trust and confidence that this is not a wishy-washy process, and that he does apply his mind, that he does apply the law. With regard to the conduct of my colleague, Advocate Selega, it's regrettable. In fact, I think he had a duty to draw to the attention of the commission that there was a defective summons, because whatever explanation he was given doesn't go anywhere near explaining the defect in the summons. He should have simply pointed out to the Deputy Chief Justice that they had, in fact, issued a defective summons. I don't know how he expected to cure the defect in the summons with a letter. The summons is a specific legal instrument. The letter is just communication, and it was never going to cure that. And I think it may have been necessary for the head of the legal team of the commission to really look at whether he is assisting the commission's credibility and whether the quality of the work is assisting the work of the commission. But it must be a matter of grave concern for anybody to look at this type of mistakes, which are really inexcusable.
Sanusha, final question to you. This bungling, it comes at a time when the eyes of the country are going to be fixated on that commission once again next week, when a difficult witness in the form of the former president, Jacob Zuma, is expected to appear there. Should Zuma should he manage to avoid giving testimony at that commission, surely you're going to have commentary such as the commission chairperson is weak. He is letting Zuma off the hook once again, despite his best attempts. Again, it goes back to the issue of confidence in this commission and that public trust.
Indeed. And I think what's so fascinating about this commission is that this commission was instituted because of the former public protector's report saying that a commission of inquiry needs to be convened in order to investigate state capture. But remember, Kwali, that at the heart of that report by Advocate Madosela was the whole question around the former president's implication in state capture. So we're kind of coming full circle here with the next week's proposed testimony, and whether or not the former president Jacob Zuma would give evidence, would be providing some kind of appearance before the commission, or whether or not his legal team will find another avenue to continually to frustrate the process. And I think this is where the big question lies, is because this whole commission is hinged on former President Jacob Zuma's actions and on his presidency and his relationship and these issues around state capture. It all kind of interlinked, and the complexity of it is that all comes back to him and how he governed the country in terms of the relationships around us. So I think that's the 360-degree issue that we should be looking at, because at the end of the day, all the other issues that we are seeing around Eskom, Transnet, the CFOs, CEOs, the role of consultancies and risk auditing companies, etc., is all linked to Jacob Zuma's presidency. So this is really the heart of it.
Sanusha Naidu, thank you very much for your time. And Mr. Modidima Mannya, Advocate Modidima Mannya, I thank you, sir, for your time. Well, that's where we're going to leave things for the moment.